Today on Art Is, we're going to learn about musical fractions with Jessica Sarkeesian. Today's class was at Robinson Elementary School in Fresno.
Support for Art Is provided by the James Irvine Foundation, expanding opportunity for the people of California.
Art Is was made possible by a grant from the Bonner Family Foundation in support of the arts and education.
Today we're going to be talking about reading music and musical fractions. Now, when we think about fractions in math, they are simply parts of a whole, right? So, today we are going to learn some new vocabulary. We are going to write out some notes and take a look at a musical staff. We're going to use these different pieces of paper to help us divide our musical staff into different pieces. And then we are going to be writing out some rhythms and challenging our friends in this class to see if they can clap them out. Are you ready to begin? Yeah. Excellent. Now, all of you have on your desks a black rectangle of paper. And that's going to help you because when we take apart these different pieces, you're going to better be able to see them on your desks. I also want to double check. Does everybody have one square of white paper? Yes. Excellent. How about two rectangles of yellow paper? Yes. Good. And 4 squares of red paper? Yes. Okay. 8 rectangles, smaller rectangles, of blue paper? Yes. All right. And you're also going to need a pen or pencil. Let's first take a look at some musical terms. Does anybody know what a staff is? Well, a staff is simply 5 horizontal lines that you musicians use the same way we use lined paper for writing. When you take a piece of lined paper in school, you write out your ideas, right? Well, musicians use these 5 lines to write out their musical ideas. Okay? Does anybody know what we call these vertical lines that separate these 5 lines into little pieces? Well, we call each of these vertical lines a bar line. Okay? Everything in between these 2 bar lines is called a measure. And we're going to be looking at 2 measures today. When we look at a piece of music, you will typically see 2 numbers at the beginning of that piece. Most often you'll see a 4 over a 4. We call this a time signature. Okay? And I like to think of it as a recipe for that piece of music. You know how when you look at a recipe for maybe making pizza or macaroni and cheese, what does it tell you? Raquel?
It tells you how to make it.
Right, it tells you how to make it. Well, this time signature gives us a recipe for the whole piece of music. It tells us something about each individual measure of music. Does anyone know what the top number tells us?
You have to put 4 notes in that little area and then go on to the next one.
That was an excellent way to explain it, Zoe. That's right. It tells us how many beats per measure. As she said, it tells you how many you can put in this area, and then you have to go on to the next one, and then you can put that same amount in the next one, and so on, right? So that top number tells us how many beats per measure. Okay, now that I have some expert musicians here, can anyone tell us what this bottom number means? That bottom number tells us which note gets one beat. Okay? So if that bottom number is a 4, which note do you think it's talking about? When we split things into 4 pieces, what do we call each piece? Yes, sir?
A quarter.
A quarter, that's right. So when we see that 4, we know that it's talking about the quarter note. So we know that the quarter note gets one beat, okay? This is the most popular, or I would say the time signature that you're going to see the most. There are others. So let's take a look at those pieces of paper we have in front of us, and let's start adding some notations to them so that we can explore and see how many combinations we can come up with, how many different ways we can fill those two measures, all right? So everybody take that white square, hold that up. All right, we all have the correct square. So we're going to draw on this a whole note. Now, I've given you all a little sheet to reference so that you know and have right in front of you so you can see, not only up on the whiteboard when I write it down, but right in front of you, you can see what the whole note looks like. I'm going to take my white square and I'm going to write a whole note in it. So go ahead and take your pen and do the same thing. A whole note is just a nice big circle. So go ahead and write a whole note on your square of paper. Now, I have another math question for you. If we know that there have to be 4 beats in one measure, it has to equal 4, and I'm telling you that the whole note takes up the whole space, just like its name sounds, how many beats do you think a whole note gets? Yes, Zoe?
4?
4, that's right. So if you want to write that down in the corner just to remind yourself that it gets 4 beats, go ahead and do that. So if I see a whole note in this measure, I know that I'm going to make music for 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're done with that note. Let's take those yellow pieces of paper and take a look at them. Now, if you put those yellow pieces of paper on top of your white piece of paper, do they cover it up completely? So that we now have one whole square again? But what we have done is we've taken that whole square and we have cut it in 2 pieces. What's another way to say that we've cut something in 2 pieces?
We cut it in half.
We cut it in half, that's right. So, what do you think we call these notes? Since we've taken the whole, we've cut it in half, we're going to call them what?
A half note.
A half note, that's right. And a half note is a circle with the tail going up like that. So what I want you to do is take your pencil or pen and go ahead and write a half note on each piece of paper, yellow piece of paper.